applications, dashboards, analytics, and so on, essentially to real-world use cases. But the most exciting part, in our view, is really all these parts in terms of blue. Because what we have done is we've built a technology environment that basically builds other technologies. So we've automated the role of artificial intelligence and machine learning to essentially build robots that then build other smarter robots. And so what we are now looking at is rolling out a series of use cases across the industry. And I'd like to just very briefly illustrate a number of those. So the first one is, again, a technology element we describe as Mercury and Centaur. So this is focused on in terms of looking at ingesting and a lot of the sensor type of technology. It could be any form of that, and then breaking that out in partnership. And Gareth from Digital Farming is one of the partners, and as well as TechTubby and Farming Connect, where again we can actually now start to build intelligent solutions. So that, for example, instead of a farmer being told what the temperature in his barn is, he's actually going to be told what the risk of pneumonia in his animals might be and what the remediation action needs to be. So it suddenly gets to a whole point in terms of actually where you've got, again, the expertise from, particularly in terms of a digital millennial farmer, that, again, essentially brings in 30 plus years of farming expertise from day one embedded into the technology. Second example, this is one where we focus in terms of a system called Galen, which is a genetic analytics engine, and Apollo. Apollo is automated learning. And again, working in concert with Aberystwyth University and IBERS and Equi and Pet Biome. What we look here is the ability to analyze essentially the health of an animal. It could also be seeds or any other form, looking at biomarkers, trend risk indicators, and again, being able to essentially remediate and ensure the health of the animal and process at a much earlier stage than would otherwise be able to do. And we've also looked to extend this, looking at novel drug discovery, looking at parasitology, for example, in terms of, again, looking at a lot of the disease factors that goes into that could potentially go into the human health chain. And we've also applied this very recently, looking at performance metrics, for example, for Olympic horses and also racehorses. So there's a huge number of novel applications where these look to extend. And so finally, again, we're based in Cambridge and in the AIC in Wales. We're very happy to sort of take any questions from any parties who are looking at JVs. There's a lot more in terms of the platform that I haven't presented. So a lot of things like field scouting, crop monitoring, looking at sustainability metrics, and the land science elements. It's all embedded within some of the other sort of components of our technology element. But I really just wanted to just give you a very brief high-level overview. Thank you, Tim.
Oh, thank you very much. Very interesting, Stephen. So thank you for sharing your work with us. I know that we've got a number of participants in with us in this room. You're welcome to be in here. I could just ask that if you would keep yourselves muted, that would be fantastic. So thank you for that. So our next speaker is Gareth, who has been set up, keyed up, is that the right word, by Stephen very well. So thank you for that. Stephen, Gareth works very interestingly in what you can see from his background. You'll see sort of new types of farming. So very much looking forward to hearing about these new methods. And we were talking about shipping containers earlier, so maybe he'll drop a few hints in there. But great to have you, and over to yourself.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, there you go. I hope everybody could see the screen okay. So yes, good morning, and thank you, Tim, for introducing me, and thank you, Stephen, for introducing digital farming. And what I'd like to say, first of all, is that the aims of what we're trying to do as digital farming absolutely couldn't reach its potential without the likes of Axio to be able to help us with the advanced AI machine learning tool sets that they're producing. And we believe that being able to develop systems quickly and effectively in this space needs good, strong partnerships. We're very happy to have developed that with Axio. So what are we about? We describe the term total controlled environment agriculture, and I'll come on to explain what I mean by that in one of the slides. And what we're about is producing high value crop systems for enhanced nutrition and developing the net zero farms of tomorrow. The reason we talk about net zero is that controlled environment agriculture comes with costs, it comes with aspects around energy use. And we recognize very early on that it's important in order to be able to roll these types of growing systems out on a wider basis, we need to tackle the carbon emission side of things of these things. So our business is really about tackling that whole issue of being able to produce controlled environment agriculture that has certain applicability in different countries, but being able to do that without increasing the problem of climate change. And key streams that we're working on: smart digital systems and recipes, particularly with Axio, sustainable circular solutions, so that we end up with a farming solution that doesn't make the reasons for it existing worse, so it doesn't make climate change worse. To use that, particularly in the early days, to look at new products for enhancing health, and to enable that to provide the country with climate resilient food production and reduce reliance on imports. So first of all, everybody understands climate change. It's been talked about very openly now for the last 10 years, and certainly been on the agenda for a lot of people over the last 40, 50 years. But the impact of it is increasing the variability of the weather throughout the year. It leads to an inability to forecast and risks associated with the supply of food that's dependent upon the climate. The Met Office has forecast that the UK winters are projected to become warmer and wetter, and that summers are projected to become hotter and more likely to be drier. And so there's a real difference in the mix between winters and summers, and crops can be very, very sensitive to that. So, outdoor farming needs to adapt to that. And what we're trying to do with controlled environment agriculture is provide a tool set that allows it to increase the resilience of UK farming by enabling crops to be grown indoors, but without increasing the cause of climate change. Particular partner we're working with, for instance, has said that a strawberry grower in the UK, warmer winters and hotter summers are impacting the amount of water we need to grow fruit. Yearly changes to pesticides usage laws limits the amount we are able to plan. Strict planning consent laws and local opposition make it hard to grow farming in the conventional way. So existing farmers are looking for alternatives, and what we're trying to do is provide realistic forecasts for how controlled environment agriculture can be a useful tool in the development of food production in the UK. So our story, or my story even, is I am a photonics person. I fell in love with light at an early age. You can see one of the infrastructures that I built in an LED company. It's called the Yas Island Marina, 5,500 color changing LED products on the outside of a building. Not what you call a smart environmental footprint, but it is a nice icon. And the reason that's important is that it helped us establish the reliability of these systems in very hot climates. So from that, I then came up with digital farming to look at turning photons into food and medicines, brought in expertise around crop bioscience and husbandry, understood that in order to expand that and be able to demonstrate that at scale, we need digitalization, robotics, and AI, which is where our partnership with Axio has come in. In order to be able to do that in a safe and controlled environment, then we built systems around quality control and security, and have been then rolling these out to look at new food and drink production systems, which I'll talk about, I think, in the next slide or the slide after that one. So controlled environment agriculture is different to traditional agriculture, and here's a comparison between what that means, comparing open field agriculture with indoor glasshouse, which is a form of controlled environment agriculture, and then what we talk about is total controlled environment agriculture. And you can see that with our form of CEA, we're able to get control over practically everything that's important for the plant growth. An example of that will be pollinators, for instance, and we use natural pollination, which you can see maybe in this, bees inside happily pollinating strawberry plants. So our aim is to avoid the use of pesticides, to reduce water consumption, to use natural pollination techniques in order to keep the process as natural as possible, but give it all the advantages of the control. So where can CEA be used? Well, this is a graph showing the value and the volume of typical crops. An example would be edible flowers. You can grow indoors very, very easily. They have high value, but extremely low volume. And as you move through this process, you end up with lettuce, for instance, which is a reasonable volume, but very lower price. Berries sit in the middle. Herbs and microgreens, which you've seen a lot through the use of vertical farming techniques, and then off to the other side is plant-ceuticals and algaceuticals. We, through digital farming, have been spinning out a variety of different use cases. One of those is Canazone, which is looking at plant-ceuticals, and the other is Growberry, which is looking at the use of berries. And these will become their own platforms to develop these techniques in a very, very focused manner. The cost structure around controlled environment agriculture is completely different to outdoor agriculture. As you can see, there are huge costs associated with electricity that you don't get in traditional agriculture. The rent and rates for these things also tends to be higher. And we end up with very consumable, intensive, so seeds and initial plants in the controlled environment agriculture tends to be a higher cost. And of course, labor is something to balance then by the use of automation or keeping the capital cost down. One of the areas that we're particularly interested in at the moment and trying to develop partnerships is digital farming for health, communities, schools, and social enterprise. You can see a rack here, which is a typical controlled environment agriculture, small scale demonstration rack, growing microgreens. And microgreens are really interesting plants. If we look at the graph here, we can see the vitamin C content of a tomato, 80 days to grow and 16 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams. Well, compare that to a microgreen. It takes 7 to 10 days to grow, and it's got 145 milligrams per 100 grams. So completely different ability of these types of crops to generate vitamins and minerals and be able to supplement diets in a highly nutritious way. And they can be grown very, very easily indoors for very low cost. And that leads to educational opportunities of putting these types of things into schools to enable schools to engage with a digital technology associated with agriculture, to understand the impact of the environment between outdoor and indoor agriculture, to understand the biology of growing crops and the nutritional content of crops. And we believe that by looking at these types of systems, we'll be able to drive increased interest of young people in the whole agri-tech sector. Thanks for your attention, and also to our partners for their continuing collaboration. Thanks to Axio for introducing us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Gareth. Great presentation. I particularly like the bit at the end where you're referencing the new people coming into the industry, sort of school leavers, that type of thing. So I think that's a good point, well made. Thank you for that. So I would like to encourage people just to keep asking your questions. You can do that, ask a question function in the CVent platform. If you're in with us in the room, then you can just put it into the chat. It'd be great to have them, and we'll take questions at the end of the session. So over first to Dr. Rebecca Charnock. She is from Aber Innovation. She works with lots of very interesting companies, has a great background in agri-food innovation. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing what she's got to share with us. So over to you, Rebecca. Again, you may just need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I lost the button for unmuting, but I'm there now. Okay, so thank you, Tim, and good morning, everyone. Just bear with me a second. Okay, so this morning I'm going to tell you a little bit about our brand new Aberystwyth Innovation and Enterprise Campus, our Aber Innovation facilities on Aberystwyth University campus based here in West Wales, and some of the exciting research in biorefining valorisation from our biorefining centre. So I'll tell you a bit about a case study that has used some current and new tech innovations either developed for the project or unique to our centre. So I guess I should start by mentioning a bit about Aber Innovation, what we are and what we do. So we are a tech-al company. We are a subsidiary of Aberystwyth University. We have a fantastic new building, which you can see here, just completed last August, providing new facilities and equipment to support collaborative companies to deliver innovative products and services, and all with a feed, food and fuel theme. And this capability has come into fruition through the investment of £14.5 million, mainly due from European funding through the Welsh European Funding Office and funding from BBSRC. And this has provided us with fully equipped facilities located on one of Aberystwyth University's 2 campuses, and situated where we can provide access to academic experts, and all with the aim of accelerating collaborative innovation. So this is our new building here. You can see we have a seed biobank processing unit, we have a biorefining centre, we have a future food centre and an advanced analysis centre, as well as an innovation hub for companies to use and to interact with academic expertise in Aberystwyth University. We also have offices where we have a community of 28 company members, some virtual, some residing in our offices. And these are companies relating to that theme of feed, food and fuel, all companies that work with companies within these themes. I'd just like to point out that we have one of our members here, Axio. So quickly looking at some of the areas that we have expertise and capabilities in, areas that we enable companies to develop innovations and services in. So farming and food production methods to optimise product quality. We can look at improving crop management through autonomy and big data usage. Breeding crops for higher yield and resilience. Development of functional foods. Enabling development of a personalised nutrition approach. Ingredient and additive development. Flavour and texture advancements. Smart manufacturing for improved shelf life. Clinical evidence of health claims, reducing food waste, extracting valuable chemicals from waste, industrial biotechnology solutions for the circular economy, and bioactive discovery and extraction processes. So what tech innovations do we specialise in that are driving opportunities in agriculture? Well, many, but with restricted time, I thought I would present one case study where the project was carried out using equipment in our biorefining centre, and this is use new and unique technologies to do just that. So the first case study is looking at added pharmaceutical value and focusing on pharmaceuticals being produced from daffodils. So this was a collaborative project between Aberystwyth University, Harper Adams and Agroceutical Products, and used the equipment that we have now housed within our biorefining centre in Aber Innovation. So I guess, what was the problem? Well, there are some issues with current production of galantamine, and galantamine is an approved drug for the treatment of Alzheimer's. It is synthesized chemically and very expensive to produce, and its sales worldwide are in excess of $500 million per annum. Sadly, its use is currently constrained by its production. So researchers wanted to see if they could find a more cost-effective source of galantamine, and it was known that certain plants containing galantamine daffodils were selected as the only possible economically feasible source in the UK. So in addition to the increase the cost effectiveness, to increase the cost effectiveness, the researchers wanted to investigate whether they could be grown in less favoured upland farmland, and if the extraction of other alkaloids could be considered. So how do we get from this field of daffodils to this product here? Well, there are three parts to the project. This project tested a novel approach to producing galanthamine based on sowing daffodils into existing upland pasture, as here. And this was carried out at Pwllparan, which is an Aberystwyth University upland research farm. Specialist machinery developed in collaboration with Harper Adams was used for planting the bulbs and for harvesting the spring growth. So in spring, the green growth was harvested, and this material was then taken to the biorefining facilities to be processed. So just to explain that process, so I know here we have bulbs in this image and not the top growth, but initial trials were done using bulbs and compared with the green top growth and showed no differences in percentage content of galanthamine. So harvesting the top growth means it can be harvested each year if grown in a farm setting. So the raw materials were chopped up and juiced using this fantastic piece of equipment. And I'll just highlight that. It's a screw press juicer. And here it is in use. And then it went through enzyme digestion, and then the fibre separated off, and then the liquid through centrifuge, and then into a daisy chain filtration using a filtration unit like this one here. So this is a brand new micro and ultra filtration unit, which we now have within Aber Innovation. It has increased membrane for separating particles from a liquor. So the microfiltration typically used for removing things such as suspended solids, yeast or bacteria, and the liquid can then pass through to ultrafiltration, which is typically used for removing things like proteins and pathogens. This piece of tech is unique and specially made for us at Aber Innovation. So going back to the process, the filtered liquid then is cleaned up, passed through a high performance counter current chromatography instrument, and this helped to identify other alkaloids, and through this system these are all separated out to produce this crystallized product. So what they found was that this process is not really viable for the sole extraction of galanthamine from daffodils, so they looked at extracting other alkaloids such as narcoclasine, hemanthamine and lycrine. And just to illustrate the importance of these alkaloids, they all have potential cancer applications. In some cases are already being used for preventing tumour growth. So the outcomes from this project, they showed that upland farm areas could offer a sustainable source of plant-derived galanthamine, but only if the additional alkaloids were also extracted. Following their harvest as well, the pasture was grazed with ewes and lambs, and it was found that incorporating daffodils into grazed pastures did not affect lamb performance. And also, this has shown the potential to increase the economic sustainability of farming communities, particularly in the less favoured areas, upland areas. And this method provides a more sustainable source of galanthamine and other useful pharmaceuticals. So I hope that gave you just a taster of some of our tech innovations driving innovation in farming. And just to illustrate, this is the team at Aber Innovation and standing alongside our new building there. And this is one of Aberystwyth University's campuses here with fields for trials. You can see the fields laid out here, along here. And it's nicely positioned in picturesque mid-Wales, near the sea, just 3 miles. There's the sea there, just 3 miles from Aberystwyth and the main campus. So thank you for listening, and I hope that has been of interest. Happy to answer any questions later on.
That was fantastic. Thank you very much, Rebecca, for your presentation, and look forward to seeing you know how these things develop. Very useful application. So fantastic to see the potential combination there of something for health, but also with benefits of farming. I particularly like that, being sort of livestock and aquaculture oriented myself. Right, so over to our next presentation, and just remind again, if you've got questions, do feel free to pop them in the chat. We will get to them as soon as we can at the end. We're slightly changing the order just to keep you on your toes. So we're going to have Rob Shepherd speak to us. He's got some very interesting information to share with us. Oh, I should see, so you've got PhD, Dr. Rob Shepherd. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to your presentation. So over to you, Rob.
Thank you ever so much, Tim. Are we okay for audio and visual? Yeah. Yep, great. Thank you, Tim. Greetings to everybody in this session. Delighted to share some information that we have. My name is Rob Shepherd, and my company is Evometric. Just about the company, we're a software and solutions provider for predominantly wireless systems, data acquisition systems, and then providing software for data analysis and data science and all sorts of things. Outside of agriculture, we work in industrial, in the nuclear environment, and various other sort of sectors too. But today's talk is on our sort of agricultural angle of technologies, and for that we're specialists in low power, long range wireless telecoms. Just to put that into context for those who might not be familiar with those, low power, we're talking about the transmit power of a car key fob. So very, very low power, but not quite as short as a car key fob. We can typically get kilometers. Usually we're looking for tens of kilometers and exceptionally hundreds of kilometers just on those tiny devices. It distinguishes itself from things like cellular, because cellular is actually pretty power hungry. For those for these low power devices and those ranges, we're still getting usually years of battery endurance, so very much fit and forget. So for large areas, farms, agricultural campuses, it's really the ideal sort of wireless communications system to use. So we don't have a battery sort of management problem thrown into the mix with these sensors. Another contrast with cellular, the low power, long range solutions that we use, technologies that we use, we build our own infrastructure, so we don't need to wait for the mobile network operators to come along with a mast and sign up to commercial agreements with SIM cards and things like that. We put base stations and gateways in to solve that problem. So if you're down on the end of the Llyn Peninsula and there isn't much mobile reception, it isn't a problem for us. We can easily build the infrastructure around, and it's not particularly expensive infrastructure either, so it's fairly cost effective. And all of those components lead to really attractive technology to use in the world of instrumentation and wireless sensors. As I say, we're a solution provider, so we provide end-to-end services from the wireless all the way up to the applications. We partner with other people, so we provide the sort of back-end infrastructure and the consultancy to get them going, and then our partners run their own sensor-driven businesses on our platform, white-labeled. We've also got a consulting angle where we can do the network design for other partners, and also we spend a lot of time doing workshops, community engagement training, those kind of things. We very much prefer to work in the mountains. That's where we are in North Wales, and we've got some really interesting mountainous projects, and of course agricultural is in the rural setting, and we've got plenty of experience in urban and smart cities as well. In North Wales, we're looking at a variety of different types of instrument and sensor driven applications. We've got research projects, we've got energy projects, we've got holistic farm environment projects, we've got crime and security, archaeology, public services as well. So with these low power, long range wireless sensors, we've got a really nice mix of rural and agricultural things currently in play. I thought I'd spend some time just on the few minutes we have today looking at one research style project that we're currently working on, that we're currently rolling out. This is an EIP project, and it's all about slurry management on farms. The main problem statement there is, can wireless sensor data support and promote the best management of slurry? Best is, of course, up to interpretation, but really what we're looking for is the most effective use as far as farm operations are concerned, but also sticking with the ever-changing legislation and making sure that the solutions that we build and support and provide into farms allow them to operate within the legislative framework, and also not really be wasteful, improve the efficiencies of management of such. So we're concentrating on dairy farms and not arable. So we can lose a bit of the precision element, and that hopefully means we can use cheaper sensors, cheaper instrumentation, which in effect means that it's either a more viable proposition for farms, or it is we can get more volume of sensors onto the land, so we can hopefully use the slightly cheaper ones. The legislation, of course, is pollution oriented, so that's where the farms can be fined for pollution from slurry leaking into watercourses. That's the thing that we're trying to avoid. And of course, we're not taking over farm operations with this. This is really just a supporting toolkit based on farmers' intimate knowledge, existing practices, decades, generations of the use of this. It is really a supporting tool set rather than some kind of robot which is going to tell them exactly what to do. Another side effect, a sort of secondary outcome of this, is a digital logbook. So if there is maybe a question of a fine or question of pollution, there's a digital logbook which shows on the ground instantaneous sensor measurements, instrumentation measurements that farmers can use to support their case that they have been fulfilling their aims, aiming not to pollute watercourses, and hopefully steering clear of fairly hefty fines. This project is really an R&D style solution exploration. There is an awful lot of products on the market, and we couldn't find a good resource to find which ones should be used. We had a big list of things that could be used. And so our approach has been phase one, really sensor evaluation, taking multiple vendors, multiple instruments, multiple different types of transmitters, sensor types for soil, farm and field analysis, and pitting them against each other, doing our own soil calibrations, doing our own sort of Which magazine style product evaluations. So I've just had one of them back on my desk, and the manufacturers claim battery endurance of years and years, but this one has only lasted 3 months. So it's a very new marketplace for these types of devices. A lot of cutting edge, a lot of new devices on the marketplace, which means that are often sort of teething troubles. And part of this approach is really to wheedle out the ones that don't perform, the ones that aren't waterproof when they say they are, the ones that don't have the advertised battery endurance, and importantly, the ones that have the accuracy that we need. and that's been a pretty interesting phase to go through, rather than just picking up whatever comes out of the brochures, really just getting one of each, and as I say, pitting them against each other. So we've now made a selection on these, and we go through to sort of phase two, which is building the model, which is working out of all of the things that we could sense on a farm, what is it going to be that feeds into this model of slurry. So clearly we've got soil, environmental, and stored slurry volume, which is keeping a track on how much slurry is stored on a farm, and looking for opportunities where it can be applied where it might not have been typical to do so in the past. So the model building phase is really the analysis of the sensor data, combining it with eyewitness ground conditions. A good example of this is where we have an array of sensors in a field, and they're maybe typically showing on average it's reasonably dry or it's reasonably wet, but we may have extremely flooded corners where a farmer may just discount a field for the application of slurry because there's a flooded corner, which would mean potential for a pollution event. We're essentially combining the raw data stream with on the ground eyewitness accounts, which feed into the model of being able to work out and see between the lines of the resulting sensor data what it's likely to be in all the corners of the farm. We also combine this with weather forecasting feeds, specifically rainfall, so we can add in some existing red, amber, green style alerts quite quickly to say that tomorrow is not going to be, for example, tomorrow is not going to be a typical slurry application day, and give farmers the opportunity to use the existing data to find out what's happening and the forecasting data to find out what's going to happen, just to find in those periods like November where starting to accrue slurry over the winter period, want to make sure that we've got the storage capacity for the entire winter and storage burden, just making sure that we're using every possible window of opportunity to apply slurry, with the added benefit of a digital logbook backing up that decision making. And of course, the feedback loop from the farms is a really important aspect of this. Really, the farmers that we're working with, they drive the development of the model. A breakdown of what we have then. We've got 3 participating farms in North Wales. Each one is equipped with LoRaWAN wireless technology, which is our long range, low power, wide area network of choice. We've got 3 field sensor placements per farm, and we've used real soil experts in this sector to give us some really good insights into what which corners of which particular fields are going to be, after we've done some soil analysis on these farms. A number of data streams all feeding into the model, which I've mentioned, and we've pulled out from a couple of dozen that went into our phase 1. We've pulled out 4 selected instrument and transmitter manufacturers, and they're going to be our main line of data streams, but we'll continuously evaluate all the others as well throughout the life cycle of the project. How do we deliver this? Well, our sensor data application platform, our IoT sensor data platform, is called Pethai. For those Welsh speakers, for those who aren't Welsh speakers or Welsh learners, Pethai is the Welsh word for things or thing, and this is our multi-module IoT application platform, so we can build up modules to do specific things pretty quickly for a client environment. And the one you're looking at there is Coleg Farm Glynllifon in North Wales, which is one of our other demonstration sites with really wide range of sensor technologies in there. One of our main tools in working with specifically farmers and other sort of outdoor practitioners is not focusing on dashboards and opening up laptops and clicking buttons. We deliver as much as we can through instant messenger applications, so we can feed questions, statements, alerts, and all sorts of things directly into the farmer's pocket, and we don't necessarily have to have them go back to the farmhouse to open a laptop or whatever it might be. So we've got pretty interesting technology base to work with there, pretty varied, pretty pretty interesting across the board, all the different aspects of technology covered in this one example. And that's it for me. Thank you ever so much. There's certainly opportunity for questions. I'd be delighted to get some feedback. Thank you, Tim.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rob. Great to see sort of a real life problem that farms face, and your solution to it. So thank you for sharing us with that. We now have our last speaker for this session before we go to the questions. If you do have questions, feel free to ask them. You know how to do that, I would imagine, by now. So over to Emily Roberts, who is going to, well, who knows Rob quite well, and I'm sure she'll evidence that in a talk. So over to you, Emily.
Thank you. I've got a few links with some of the speakers as well. So Tech Tyfu, Stephen, who you mentioned, that's one of our tenants. And I saw Gareth, you were working with BIC Innovation, who are another of our tenants, and Rob Shepherd himself, of course, is another of MSpark's tenants. So it's good to see those connections, and the work our tenants doing actually exists and is out there in the world, which is exciting. So I'm Emily Roberts. I'm the Operations and Customer Experience Manager for MSpark. Can you see my screen okay? Yeah.
Yes,
cool.
Coming through.
Excellent. So I'll just give you a really quick overview of stuff that's relevant to this. So as many of you may know, we are MSpark, located there about a 10-minute drive away from Bangor University. We are wholly owned by Bangor as a university. We offer space, offices, labs, including workshops, co-working space and meeting rooms, but we do so much more than that as well. So one of the new things that we've got is the Fuse Makerspace. Fuse is a project that is across North Wales, working with Menter Morn, Cynllun Arfor and others, and we offer space to do things like 3D printing, CNCs, vinyl cutters, which helps us help people who are starting to innovate, who want to do prototypes and work on things like this. This is our community, so these are some of our tenants and the people who work with us. So it's not just North West Wales, but we are sort of going national and now increasingly international with a reach of people who want to work and collaborate with us, both for the innovation we can support and for working with our tenants as well, which is really exciting. We've also got an enterprise hub, which we run with Mented Morn, specifically to help people start their own companies, because we really want to encourage innovation and enterprise here in North West Wales. Here are some of our stats from 2020, a difficult year, but one that we wanted to celebrate because our tenants and ourselves worked together very closely to keep innovating and keep working during this time. And despite what people say about working from home and the end of the office, we are now actually 84% occupied. That increased quite dramatically in 2020, which was a surprise to us, but a good surprise. So in terms of what we've been doing with innovation, a lot of the work that I've been doing is on events and engagement. So once the pandemic kind of happened, we realized very quickly people still wanted to innovate, but you can't go anywhere to do it. So we moved our events online, as many other people did, and as we're doing here today. Some of the key events we did was health hacks. We ran 3 of the Welsh health hacks with our partners, and we managed to get 15 new innovative products and devices out into the NHS, and about 7 or 8 of those are specifically focusing on COVID problems and COVID solutions as well, which is really exciting. So on to the things that are a bit more relevant to today. This is the LoRaWAN site connectivity for MSPAC, which I think Rob is quite familiar with this, as he's helped us set a lot of these sensors up. And this is the work that we've been doing to date with IoT. So we're using the building and the surrounding area as a test bed, basically, for everything we can do. So that's Nedis. Anyone who's been to MSPAC and Tanya will know Nedis, who works in the cafe, was been testing IoT out for us as well on the fridges. The device that Rob showed in his slide, that's based on MSPAC's site as well. And many of the innovations, such as TechTV, also have their gear located with us at MSPAC. So an event that we did recently, which some of you may have been involved with, was the rural crime hack. So North Wales Police approached us and they wanted solutions to 3 problems, which was quad bike theft, outboard motor theft, and breaking into outbuildings, problems which cost the industry millions of pounds every year in insurance. So we thought we would help in an innovative way and put out a call to see if anyone could come up with AI or IoT solutions. So we had 4 winning solutions to prevent or discourage theft and also to track theft if they happened. And one of the interesting ones which won a sort of runner prize was, I don't know if you can see this one, it's a device that goes into Wellingtons because farmers often lose their keys, so they leave everything unlocked. It's a little chip that goes in the Wellingtons, so instead of a key, you can just sort of kick the door, the chip activates, and you can go into the barn or outbuilding. And that's been given funding to help start quad bikes and tractors via the device to prevent keys and theft. The only solution we can't get around is that farmers tend to leave their Wellingtons by the front door, which they tend to leave unlocked, which means your key is still there to steal if you'll take the Wellingtons. So that's a user error, and that's something we can work around. So leading on from that, the next event that we're doing is an agri hack on the 1st of the 3rd, which happens to be MSPAC's birthday. So we thought that would be an excellent way to celebrate. We'll have been open 3 years at this point. So on the 1st of Feb, we're meeting with people in the agri sector to ask what their needs is. And if anyone has not had an invite and really wants to attend these, please do get in touch with me. My email address is at the bottom there. So we're going to not just open it out and say, what solutions can you bring? We want to know what the real problems are first and come up with those challenge questions. And then on the 1st of March, we are hosting an agri hack with, and that's not a typo, £100,000 prize, which will either go to one amazing innovation or be split between ones that can really help in the agri sector, but they have got to be AI or IoT linked solutions. So I'm sure many of you watching hopefully will be very interested in that. So please join us on social media or drop me an email if you want to hear more, because as soon as those solutions are put together, we will be advertising this and we will be asking people to join us and bring their solutions to us to help make a real change to the agri sector. So that's all from me. Feel free to ask any questions, and diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Emily. I very much appreciate the the opportunity there of some funding. Everybody always likes to find out about that. So thank you for sharing that good information with us. I'm sure people will be taking you up on that. So we're now going to move over to the questions. If people do have questions, you can ask them in the chat. We've got some people in the room. You could ask, you could unmute yourself as well if you really wanted to. But I'm going to start with a question which I think is pertinent today, which is basically about new technologies in agri-food. And the question is, what new agri-food technologies are you most excited about? And I think we'll go first to Dr. Stephen, if you wouldn't mind answering that one. So what new agri-food technologies are you most excited about, and why?
Thanks for that, Tim. I guess there's a number that I'd like to sort of highlight. I think I mean, starting with the element in terms of smarter data and really enabling different choices in terms of actually the way that you produce and select food and monitor food. And I think a lot of the evolution in terms of how that's feeding into the controlled environment, I think it's truly game changing. Because if you think across the planet, the number of regions who now, particularly with COVID, who've discovered actually that their food supply chain is not nearly as secure as they thought it was, but still want the ability to have the food choices in country. I think we're going to see a huge amount of diversification, and I think the enabling technologies like the edge, the IoT components, the data elements, I think that's going to be a really exciting series of journeys for every economy.
Oh, thanks. That's a good answer, and I totally agree. I think one of the things I was reading about yesterday was that the cost of satellites has dramatically dropped to, well, I mean, it sounds like a lot to me, but it's $1 million per satellite now, which is much lower. So that will, that data that you're talking about is just becoming more and more available to us, and will continue in the future. So the same question to Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind taking that one. What are you most excited about?
Yeah, so obviously in our new centre, we have lots and lots of different equipment, which are all equally exciting. But there's one particular item that I personally quite excited by. It's not necessarily the newest piece of equipment, the newest tech, but it's been in use in the biorefining centre for the last few years. If I may just share my screen, I have a really good picture of it here.
Please do.
So just bear with me a second. Here we go. So I hope you can see that.
We can't see it.
No, okay, just a second. That's my fault for, there we go. Right.
Very good.
Okay, so yeah, this is a steam explosion unit, which effectively put biomass into the system, and it will apply steam at great pressure to the biomass, and it will help then to rupture the cell walls and split the fibers apart in your biomass. And this allows, it gives the ability to extract things out of cells and biomass that you wouldn't ordinarily have been able to. So examples of some of this is a project which we have run before, which is using wheat to extract xylitol, so xylitol being sugar substitute. So this machine was used for using wheat straw to do that. It's also something that we're looking at a project where we will be looking at insect protein, and it will be used to blast apart some of the insect casings to extract that little bit more protein which can't ordinarily be extracted from insects. So really interesting piece of equipment there. I'll just unshare my screen.
Oh, thank you.
There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see the applications for that. We are sort of working quite a bit in the insect space at the moment. KTN, we've got quite a few, because I know there's a lot of interest as a new sort of agri-food, I was going to say technology, it's not really, but a new production method, I guess. So yeah, I totally can see the application there. Gareth, over to yourself. What are you most excited about in terms of new technologies?
Well, I'm going to stay consistent with the love of my life, the photon, and obviously light is the energy which is given to the plants to allow them to grow, and being able to tune the lighting to the plants, both spectrally, which means what wavelengths you give to the plant that are most useful to it, temporarily, i.e. when do you give it to them, and spatially, which means, you know, what parts of the plant do you give it. If you can optimize those, then you can minimize the energy consumption and reduce the carbon effect of these things, which is a real challenge, but a really exciting one for me. Yeah,
thank you for that question. I'm going to come to Rob now with a question we've had around CubeSats. So basically, and this might not be totally your roundhouse, Rob, but bear with me. So I think it's a question about satellite technology imagery. Will that help topography to farm more efficiently and monitor water levels and flood risks of fields? So I guess it's asking, you know, how can we integrate satellite data into existing farming practices? How can you see that as a sort of a data person, Rob?
Yeah, thank you, Tim. In the project we were just talking about, we actually had some input from a soil expertise company, AgriResa, and they have already incorporating satellite imagery and data extraction from satellite imagery into their data sets. So we were able to really quickly look at a farm and look at fairly generally. It's not necessarily precision, but across a farm you can pull out really large variables like, well, of course, elevation, and also the moisture content, which is derived from leaf color and field color and those kind of things. And the quality is not necessarily the data is not necessarily instantaneous, because it may require multiple satellite passes to defeat cloud cover. We have an awful lot of cloud cover in North Wales, so you sometimes have to wait a period to get the data that you're after. But with increasing number of satellites that are being put up at the various orbits and the constellations that are being put up, really it just becomes an extension of the Internet of Things, where there is visibility from numerous different inputs, whether it is farmers looking at a field with some expert eye, or whether it's precision instruments, so precision instruments at the crop site. So for microdosing and things like that, where you want to specifically target maybe an individual plant or a couple of meters of growing space. We get some precision sensors there, more general purpose sensors to cover a single field, or a few sensors to cover a farm area. And then the satellite gives you really sort of broad coverage over an entire region to see what's happening. So you can effectively see what your neighbors' farms are doing as well, and work out regionally how the farm it compares or whatever. So there is an enormous amount of general data extraction that can come from that imagery. Yeah. I'd like the opportunity to answer your first question as well, if I may, because I've got something there.
Left, Rob. So take us home.
It's the combination of AI and low power wireless. So it's processing at the edge. This is one of the next generations that is starting to come round, and it's to do with the processing power on really low power silicon. So it's the ability to put a camera inside, say, a bird box, and have the camera indicate on a very low power battery if that bird box is hatching, or there's eggs or something like that, some feature extraction, rather than having to send CCTV imagery across a high power link. Really fantastic technology that I think will just open up yet more doors.
I can certainly see some of the potential applications for that. And I think it's, I mean, it's been a fantastic session. I'd like to thank everybody, and I hope you can see how some of these new emerging technologies are really going to help us solve some of the future challenges and current challenges that we are facing, not only within in Wales, but also within the UK and more broadly globally as well. So once again, thank you to all my panelists. Really appreciate your time and coming today, and thank you to all the attendees as well. That's everything from me. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you for joining the Emerging Tech Fest. Join us again on our virtual live sessions or watch us on playback anytime, anywhere.